as well as DDoS protection. So it's going to be brief, just be a few minutes, just to more or less open your mind around the trends around application security, as well as ways in which we can better protect our applications. So maybe just in way of introduction, my name is Sammy Luvinzu. So I work for a company called DataGroupIT, which are value-added distributors of different IT security solutions. Our team is quite wide, so we have team members across Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and across the rest of Africa. So today, the reason why we're having this today is because we always make an effort to help our customers understand what is happening in terms of security, in terms of cybersecurity, as well as the most appropriate ways to ensure that your infrastructure is protected. So most of you on this call, I'm pretty sure, work for organizations that have certain assets online, and these assets are actually now having an impact on your on your own profit and loss analysis. So before, these tools were more like just good to have extras, but now they become key value providers. The key value that you get from the business is driven by these online platforms. So that's why it's important that we have these kind of discussions regularly. So as a company, we have different solutions that we look at, but today we're focusing on the area of application security as well as DDoS protection. But as you can see, we have solutions around user security, around network security, around data security. So if you have concerns around security, you can reach out to any of our team members and we'll be happy to assist you. So one of the things that we've been hearing recently, I know that the focus is around East Africa for this particular webinar. So I think many of you must have heard about the recent DDoS attack we had in Kenya. So I'm personally based in Nairobi. We had a recent attack on our key online service. So basically, for the guys who are not in Kenya, we have an online portal where citizens can access critical services like identification documents, passports, visa, even criminal clearance. All these kinds of government services are actually accessible online, which is a very good solution for citizens. But what happened, for some political reason, certain attackers decided to attack these key resources that are online. So you see, before, there wasn't as much focus on such things, but I feel like for once, the general public had a view of attacks on key applications. They kind of understood how it's like when you get those kind of attacks. So maybe just if I could just step out of the slide for a minute or two, I can show you just something here on my browser. Yeah, so if you have questions, of course, you can, I welcome them on the chat so that we can try and make it a bit interactive. I can review them maybe towards the end of our session. I'm looking for my browser. Just a moment. Yeah, there we are. So if you look at this, this is like one of the stories we had on the big publications we have. So this was the portal was down. So it created a lot of media buzz around the attack that happened. And now you can picture this as your organization. Sorry. I want you to picture your organization in this exact situation where your corporate website is there, internet banking, whatever it is, and it's actually reported to be attacked. I want you to imagine the impact it has on the level of trust as customers have on your particular services, even on the brand, not just the services. So if Bank X was featured like this on the papers, and it's public information. So I'm putting this because this is public. This is on the internet. So if you are in such a position, it's definitely a very painful thing to be in. And now it has impact not just on the IT security team, but on the board of the company, because this is something that even the directors would have visibility on. Why are we being featured on the on the main newspapers? Why are we having all these problems around our systems? So even if the attack itself didn't have a lot of impact, the impact on your brand is massive. Just being down for that amount of time, it would have a very big impact in terms of what you're doing. And when I talk about impact, now it's actually multiplied. So there are different different governments around the region are coming up with laws to try mitigate some of these risks, especially on customer information. So if you're a business that actually interacts with a large number of customers, this is a big concern for you. So when you're protecting applications, we're essentially protecting the data behind it. So it's just a means of securing the data behind it. So if you look at this recent Gazette supplement from 2019, they proposed a law, and that back then it looked very, unclear in terms of implementation as well as how will it be enforced. So it came quite some time ago, but we never thought it would really amount to much. But now even the governments of different countries in East Africa are getting this into focus. It's becoming a big issue. So when you saw this news recently, where the Office of the Data Protection in Kenya actually instituted fines against specific people. And these were things that to us might look minor, like sharing images on social media, but then it sends a very strong message. If they can prosecute someone for sharing photos on social media, what would they do for a bank, insurance company for exposing very sensitive data about a customer to the public? So this was a very strong message, in my opinion, that every company should prioritize securing their applications as well as their data. So even as you go through the content that are prepared for today, please have this at the back of your mind. What would be the business impact of a major attack against your brand? What would happen to your business? What would happen to your image? What would be the brand reputation be like? I know a lot of us struggle when it comes to, when it comes to getting some of this approval, some of this support from the executives, because we propose certain solutions and they really pushed back. They're told it's too expensive, it's not really relevant. But then you need to explain to them exactly what kind of impact this can have. If this was you on the papers, if this was you on the news, what would that do to our profit and loss? What would it do to customer trust? Will guys be willing to engage with our business, with our brand, to insure with us, to bank with us, and so on? So when you look at the weight of such activities, they definitely have an impact on the bottom line. So that's why it's very important to not just consider this, but take them very seriously. Consider, do I have effective protections for my applications? Do I have protections against things like DDoS attacks? And are those protections effective? Are they actually effective when it comes to real life attack? Because I could get a solution and tick the box, I have it, but would it actually prevent a real attack? Or will it just be there to say that, board, we actually put some effort on it? So do you have a solution that you can actually bet your job on it? Like this thing, nothing will get through because I really believe in it. So that's just those are the kind of thoughts I want to provoke in this webinar, just to try make you think about some of these possibilities as well as challenges, and then we'll see how to proceed from there. Let me jump back to my presentation. So when you're looking at this protection, we're looking at it we're looking at it in regard to the way our economies have developed. So we've essentially become a digital economy where a lot of the interactions we have with customers are actually online. So what we want to do in this digital economy is to deliver more, be more efficient, and to mitigate risk. So these are very simple things, but they are not as easy to execute. So how do we deliver more? How do we get more security for the infrastructure in a very small team? Because most of us are in very small teams, and then we want to still be able to drive efficiency in that small team. Can I get a solution that can cover multiple areas of risk? And that solution itself will not have a lot of overhead in terms of operationalizing it. So that's what we're going to look at today. How can we have tools that can deliver effective protection and have minimal impact in terms of the effort it takes to make them to work. And then also, beyond the effort, how effective are these tools at mitigating real world attacks? Are they just there to show that, yes, I have a tool? Are they very accurate, being able to prevent attacks without affecting the real business? Because in security, you cannot be a good security solution if you're going to affect legitimate customers. If legitimate customers are going to get their access blocked, they're going to get a lot of pop-ups requesting them to authenticate themselves. It becomes a big problem on a business where the security solution becomes a cost when it comes to acquiring customers and keeping them. So these are things we really need to look at when it comes to security. So we need to understand internally, okay, what are the most valuable targets? So if I was to look at myself as a business, do I have online presence? Of course, I'm pretty sure you do. But then this presence, like which are my most valuable assets? If I'm a bank, probably it's an internet banking portal. Yeah. But something that most people don't think about is also the touch point of APIs. So a bank would have, as an example, a bank would have internet banking portal, and they would also have mobile apps on their phones. But then how do these mobile apps connect to the bank's backend systems? Is through what you call APIs, or application programmable interface. So that's the interface where the actual mobile app on your phone connects to the backend systems. So if that interface goes down, it means you will be unable to access your different accounts, your different systems, and becomes a big problem. Yeah, and then also as you develop technology and so on, you want to make sure that you have very rapid adoption of new technology. So if the developers have come up with new ways to run your applications, to deliver value, how can I make sure that whatever protections they have don't become an inhibition to the innovation that we need to have as a business? Yeah, and then also, as I talked about, can we have effective protection without causing a lot of noise to the real business? So what we need is simplicity. That's a tool that works well with minimal impact when it comes to usage, to the ease of use, and so on. We need precision, something that would be able to block the attacks without affecting real customers. And then on top of that, we need a team of experts behind it. So, as I mentioned, most of our teams are quite small, and you find that we don't have enough even skills and capabilities to effectively manage complicated tools. So we need expertise also behind us that can give us some sort of backup support to make sure that whatever protections we're delivering are actually effective. So I'll talk about that expertise as well. So the solution we look at today as a way to get some of these things delivered to you is a solution from a company called Imperva. So Imperva is one of the leaders when it comes to effective security against online attacks. It's protecting the applications that you have that's exposed to the public as well as APIs, and making sure that the data that sits behind it is safe. Because at the end of the day, we want to protect that data, and we look at various ways of protecting it. So Imperva has different tools that they have in their portfolio, but the best thing about it is that they have a very unified approach to deploying these tools. So for example, on the application security side, instead of deploying 5 different solutions, like in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, instead of deploying 5 tools to get 5 solutions, you deploy you deploy all the 5 solutions on one platform. So I'll explain how that works. So that greatly reduces the amount of effort you need to put in to get these things to work and to work well. So I'll explain how that works, as well as show you a bit of it. So with this application security, we'll protect your workloads, whether they are on-prem, whether on the cloud, or whether it's a mix of the two. So we'll protect those workloads wherever they are and however they've been set up. Whether you're using traditional servers, where it's a monolithic application, or you're using microservices to set up your infrastructure, it doesn't matter. So all that is transparent. So what matters is that, is it online? Is it accessible online? Yes. Then now we can protect it using Imperva's application security solution. So there are different attacks that we look at in terms of this discussion. I know there's been a lot of that focus on DDoS attacks, but attacks on the right side. Hello? Yeah, sorry about that. I had a bit of a network issue. So, Diane, can you see my slide?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So, as I was explaining, we are looking at the different attacks that happen on our infrastructure. So there is the area of DDoS attacks, and then there's the area of the kind of attacks they call the hacking kind of attacks, the ones in purple. We look at those different kind of attack vectors and as well as how they can be effectively mitigated. So I'd say when it comes to application protection, we started the journey on the OWASP top 10. So those are the tools, the kind of attacks that we looked at the beginning of protecting applications. Once we move beyond the perimeter firewall, beyond the stateful firewall and the next generation firewall, when you started entering into the WAF, the web application firewall, which is basically a firewall that's application aware, that understands the conversation at the application level and is able to deliver protection at that level. So once we started the journey, we came up with this OWASP top 10 kind of attacks. So these are basically the most common attacks that happen on applications on the internet. So these are the kind of attacks that are done by hackers using specialized tools. So for example, the injection attacks, where a hacker sends certain code into input forms that you have on your website. And then by injecting that code, they're trying to get an abnormal response from the application. So for example, someone could send code that ends up giving a list of all your customers from your database. As an example of an injection attack, there's broken authentication, where someone takes advantage of how your sessions are authenticated. So for example, we may be using cookies, so it may be using sessions, whichever kind of authentication, passwords, and so on. So they take advantage of the logic that you use to authenticate users to be able to take advantage and get maybe more access than they should be have access to. The sensitive data exposure and so on. So these are different attacks that if a hacker is able to use the right tools, they can easily break your website and get access to the backend data. So remember, at the end of the day, we're trying to protect your data by protecting the application at the front of at the access point between your customers and yourselves. So by using this, we want a tool that can prevent all these common attacks without affecting the actual customer experience. So how can I get proper OWASP top 10 attack protection without affecting the customers? So the other thing to remember is that as your apps are being developed, there are always shortcomings, there are always weaknesses in the application that developers miss along the journey of development. So having a WAF is mandatory because you cannot 100% prevent weaknesses in the system. So you need to have a tool that can still prevent those attacks even when the programmers have missed maybe certain areas that they need to cover to prevent such attacks. Yeah. So we need protection against all these common attacks, but critically without affecting real customer interactions. Like the genuine customers should not be affected by these attacks, by this protection. So that's where the journey started. But as applications continue developing, the hackers also kept developing. So they went beyond just using standard tools to prevent attacks to starting to use automated tools or bots. So basically, they create a small applications that are distributed across the internet in different hosts that are able to run different attacks at their own commands. So the attacker might be seated in one region and they have 1,000 different bots distributed across the internet, and they can automatically run certain kind of attacks. So that's bot kind of attacks. So with that, the attacker is able to achieve much more with the limited resources they have. So they can have a whole army of bots doing the attacks for them. So that's why we have things like creating false accounts using automated systems. They know how to manipulate your login forms. They can create fake accounts and then try to use those accounts to access your data. Things like ad fraud, where they can put ads on your pages so that they get money from those ads. Capture defeat, where they actually use maybe tools that can automatically detect those captures and log in despite you having the captures. Carding, cracking, these are different kind of attacks against credit cards that you have. So there are different kinds of attacks that happen using those bots that are automated. So how do we identify these bots and differentiate them from the genuine users who are accessing our systems? That becomes a big question. Now, you're not just looking at a hacker with a certain tool, you're looking at an advanced hacker who has an army of bots that simulate human behavior and they're interacting with your system. How do we make sure that among all these bots, we can actually identify and block the bots? So right now, more than half of the traffic on the internet is actually from bots. And out of those half of the traffic, about 2/3, sorry, about out of 5 of that is actually bad bots. So in short, 30% of internet traffic is actually coming from bad bots. That's based on recent research. So you can imagine 30% of users coming into your website are actually not users, and they're bad bots. So they are bots that have malicious intent of entering your systems. So how do you make sure that I can actually identify and block these bad bots without affecting my genuine customers? Because at the end of the day, the genuine customers are the ones that bring the revenue, and you don't want to affect their access. So we've looked at the hacking kind of attacks, the OWASP top 10, and that we need to protect against them with accuracy without affecting business. We looked at automated attacks, where we're talking about bots and how do we identify these bots and prevent those bots from attacking our systems. Then beyond that, there are also other areas that we're looking at now. So I'll just jump into the OWASP API top 10 attacks. So with APIs, it's another trend that has become quite a big issue. So basically, we have a situation where a lot of applications are becoming very heavy on APIs. So remember I said APIs is application programming interface. It's basically an interface where one set of code talks to another set of code. So one application talks to another application. So this not only applies between the internet, the mobile app and the backend system, but also applies within the website itself. So you find that a lot of modern websites utilize APIs to work between the front end and the back end system. So you'll find different components of the website talk to each other through API. So there are a lot of APIs interaction just on your website. So when it comes to this kind of new applications, it creates a whole lot of vulnerabilities, a whole lot of attack surface. So if given that most users of these applications are not aware of the kind of APIs they're running, so you might have a website that's running normally, but it has 30 APIs that's actually exposed to the public. So if the developers missed certain steps in configuring those APIs, you could be vulnerable for all these kinds of attacks against the APIs. And you remember attacking this API is as good as attacking the normal website because you can get access to the backend information of your customers. So how do I identify the APIs that I have? And then how do I effectively protect those APIs? That becomes a big question because APIs are becoming the way most applications are now built. They're built basically on APIs. So if your APIs are brought down, your services go down. So it's extremely critical. Now, another trend that has come up is just the way a lot of code that you have picks up code from other third parties. So if you look at a typical website, you'll find it loads a lot of code from third parties. And some of that code might actually be malicious. So for example, I could log into your website, the form loads on my browser, but then that form is calling a certain JavaScript that is now going to run on my client. That's on my browser. So when that code runs on my browser, it's able to, for example, intercept my keystrokes that are going to maybe my login pages and be able to steal credentials while running from the client side. So how do I identify these malicious pieces of code on the client that are being loaded on the client side and prevent them from now accessing the customer's data, which is hosted on your side. So that's where client-side protection comes in. So identify those malicious JavaScripts or different kinds of scripts that are running on the client side and are trying to be loaded, and prevent them from being loaded so that they don't cause havoc on your side in terms of attacking, rather stealing data from the customer side, breaking the application, and hacking your client. So how do you prevent those kinds of attacks? So you can see it's quite a wide discussion when it comes to application protection. And if you're to have all these tools, you can imagine the kind of fear you'd have of overly complicated solutions and so on, but we'll look at that. So the other one that I'd like us to think about is supply chain and zero-day attacks. So this is a bit of a more nascent issue. So basically, we're looking at an issue where you're using certain code in your infrastructure that comes from maybe third parties, and then some of this code might have vulnerabilities that you are not aware of. So maybe the most popular kind of attack that happened in the last few years was Log4j. They're basically an open source library that's used by millions and millions of different websites. So it's just a standard package that was loaded to different applications. So even commercial solutions included this library called Log4j. Now, suddenly it was discovered that Log4j has a critical vulnerability. Now, at the point of discovery of that vulnerability, there's no fix for it until the researchers figure out, okay, how does a vulnerability get exploited? And then now they build ways to prevent that exploitation. So that may take a few hours, a few days, a few weeks, you're never sure. But at that point of discovery of that zero-day attack, can you get protection at that point? So it becomes a very challenging question to ask yourself. And especially if you have very critical systems online, it's a question you should ask yourself. If there's a zero-day attack, do I have any sort of protection? Or am I going to just wait for our vendors to come up with a solution to prevent those attacks, and then I patch it? So during that time, I'm just crossing my fingers, hoping nothing goes wrong. So you can actually have a way to prevent these kinds of attacks, which I'll explain to you. So it's a zero-day attack tools, but the way it works is that it doesn't look at the signature of the attack. It looks at the behavior of your application. So it looks at, okay, this is the application acting normally, accessing user data normally, sharing the user data normally. And when that code moves from the normal behavior to behaving abnormally, for example, taking a huge amount of data, exporting certain things, it's able to see the deviation of that code behavior and is able to stop that attack without even knowing how exactly the attack is executed, without knowing what are the vulnerabilities, without knowing what is the attack signature. It just sees the behavior of the code is this way, we can prevent it. Now, on the other hand, we have DDoS attacks. So the attacks we've looked at so far are around breaking the application, trying to break that application. Now, on DDoS side, we're just preventing you from accessing the application. We're not even trying to, get into your data. We're just focusing on availability of your application. So, as long as your app is not available, it's of no value to the business. You won't be able to get customers onboarded. You won't be able to do any business. So you lose money as long as that website is down. And on top of that, just the fact that your site is down, it creates a lot of bad publicity that your site was down. And especially when the attackers actually put their signature that you've actually brought down this website. So it becomes a big problem that if we get a DDoS attack, we have a tool that would respond very quickly so that before even anyone notices that you're under attack, the attack has been mitigated. That you're 100% sure that even if I'm sleeping in the middle of the night and someone notices an attack, it will be able to block the attack and have customers accessing normally. And I'll just go later and look at the logs and see, okay, we had a huge DDoS attack last night, and this is how it was prevented. So is that possible? Is that something you're confident about, that you can actually have DDoS protection against your brand? It's not even just against your website, it's against your brand, because the website represents your brand. So do we have that kind of protection? So I've painted a very grim picture, but there's a solution for this. So you don't have to, struggle with all these things. There's actually a solution. And the best thing about what we're discussing today is that we'll help you consolidate the number of tools you have to use. You've seen there's so many different ways you look at these attacks, and you could easily end up with 4 or 5 different vendors that you have to work with to get this kind of capability. But we're going to explain to you how you can achieve this with just one solution. And then also, you tend to have a lot of dashboards you need to look at. How can we have the data from all these kinds of components presented in one place, using things like machine learning to just kind of bring to the surface how many things you need to look at in a day. Instead of looking at 1,000 alerts, just look at 3, 4, 5 different issues that you need to investigate. And then you'll be able to have effective use of the very few resources that you have to look at cybersecurity. So those few resources will be multiplied by having a tool that uses machine learning to try focus on what is important for you. So looking at the different things we've talked about in the previous slide, I'll talk about ways in which we're able to protect your different applications. And the best thing about this is that everything on this slide is on one dashboard, which you will see. Every component that you see here is on the same module, the same dashboard, the same system that you will access everything here. So it makes your setup very easy to use, very easy to manage. When you talk about the first thing we looked at, the OWASP top 10 attacks, which are the hackers using tools to break a website. So Imperva has a web application firewall that's available to protect your applications against all these OWASP top 10 attacks and much more. And the key value about it is that it has very low false positives. So it works effectively without affecting the real customers, and it works automatically. So you can actually have it in blocking mode, which we recommend, and it would work well without affecting real customers, and you have very good value in terms of protection without interfering with the real customers. Then when it comes to API security, Imperva has a tool that is able to deliver the OWASP protection on these APIs so that no one can launch these attacks, these known attacks on the APIs with different tools. They can't be able to launch them because we'll be able to block them. Then on top of that, we'll help you also understand how many APIs you have. So a lot of customers are not aware, like how many APIs do I actually have? What kind of data are they transacting? What kind of risk are they exposing our organization to and our brand to? So we'll also give you visibility into, okay, you have this many APIs. This is the kind of data that they process. And then now we allow you to now secure those APIs. So we give you information about the APIs and then help you to effectively secure those APIs. And then when it comes to automated attacks, which are the bots, so Imperva has, again, another tool that's able to prevent advanced bot attacks, as well as basic bot attacks, of course. So we're able to protect against basic bots. So basic bots are the ones that don't use overly complicated technologies. They're easy to identify and be able to prevent. But Imperva gives you another higher option of also advanced bot protection, where these are the tools that hackers use when they're specifically targeting your organization with bots. So you'll find bots that are not really targeting you. They're just on the internet trying to look for vulnerable targets. Those ones you can prevent with basic bot protection. But with advanced bot protection, you can prevent a targeted bot attack against you. And then this platform is also backed by a SOC team that's able to assist you in the event there is a very heavy targeted attack on your infrastructure. You'll also have a team on the Imperva side to help you, if you need to fine tune anything to keep the protection up and running, they'll be able to help you. Then on client-side protection, there's a module that looks at this malicious code and is able to prevent it from exploiting your systems. And then finally, on supply chain protection, we have something called runtime protection, which is a solution you embed inside your application code and is able to see the normal processing of your code and identify when the code is actually being misused. And there's possibility of zero-day attacks on that code. So you can identify and actually prevent those attacks. So in that incident I talked about for Log4j, Imperva was able to block the Log4j attacks while other providers were looking for signatures and so on. They're able to identify and block those attacks without even knowing exactly how the attacks are being done, by just looking at how the backend is behaving. So that's something that you can think about. On the DDoS side, Imperva offers both layer 3-4 as well as layer 7 DDoS protection. So on layer 3-4, we can actually prevent DDoS against your public IPs. So we won't just look at the website, we can look at every single interaction on your public IPs. If let's say you want to protect 3 IPs, we have a solution for that. If you want to protect your entire C class or /24, we can actually do that as well. So we can prevent DDoS against your whole block of IPs, or even just specific IPs that are critical for you. If you say, for me, these 4 IPs are critical for me, we can have individual IP protection. But on the other hand, on the application side, we can also have DDoS just for the websites. So if, for example, if for you the critical thing is your online presence, we can have DDoS protection on those websites. So if you have 5, 6, 10 websites, we can have DDoS protection on those 7 websites. So it depends on the kind of priority you have, and be able to give you the effective solution. So in terms of delivery of these solutions, we also recommend taking the option of Cloud WAF, which is a cloud-based solution that can give you everything in one platform. However, Imperva still has an option to deploy these solutions on premise. So that's something that's still available, because you understand for some customers, they're not yet ready for a cloud-based solution, but I'll explain the advantages of the cloud-based solution. But we have an on-prem option that can deliver the WAF, can deliver API security, can deliver bot protection, can also deliver runtime protection. So they're implemented as different modules. So in this case, it's the same provider, but they're done, separate, because not every customer needs all the modules. So you implemented the modules and works on premise. But in this particular webinar, I'm recommending the cloud-based option. Reason being, you get them everything in one platform, and it's offered as a service. So it means you're actually focusing on the SLA as opposed to how do I operate these tools. So they give an SLA that we will, for example, they give an SLA that they will prevent DDoS in 3 seconds. So you can't get, it's very difficult to assure management that the tool you have on-prem will stop DDoS in 3 seconds, because there are things you feel like you don't have full control on. But say with Imperva, because it's the infrastructure and your traffic is passing through the infrastructure, they have 100% control, and they can actually assure you over 3-second written SLA on DDoS protection, that in the event of DDoS attack, they will block it in under 3 seconds. So that's something that you won't get easily. Rather, you won't even get from any other vendor. That's a written SLA. On the other hand, we also have all these solutions against attacks on the application, which are still on the same platform. So we have the WAF, which comes as a service. You'll see how well it works. We have API security, again, that comes as a service. We have advanced bot protection, again, as a service, as well as client-side protection. And runtime protection can also be added to that portfolio. So you get a whole array of solutions, everything on one dashboard, one service, and becomes very easy for you to have confidence and peace that your online resources actually are well protected. So, so we'll just take you through a brief demo of the solution, and then that will conclude our webinar for today. Let me just share my screen. So I talked about the single dashboard. So this is Imperva's single dashboard. So as it loads, I'll just explain to you how the Cloud WAF works. So when it comes to Cloud WAF, we have, broadly speaking, we have 2 solutions. We have network DDoS prevention, and we have the Cloud WAF. So the Cloud WAF is focused on the applications that are being hosted on the platform. When I say applications, I mean websites, APIs, all of that is, I put them under application. So when it comes to how do I onboard my website, it's as simple as a DNS change. So a DNS entry is what defines what resource does my URL refer to. So for example, if my URL is www.bank.com, that bank.com refers to a specific IP address on the internet. That IP address could be seated on premise in whichever data center you have, or could be seated in a cloud provider, depending on where you've hosted it. So what we do to onboard on Imperva's Cloud WAF is we just edit that DNS entry to say, instead of pointing to the bank's on-prem or cloud-based IP, we're going to put the IP as Imperva's IP. So Imperva will receive your traffic. We're going to clean the traffic and then deliver it clean to the backend server. The backend server could be on-prem. The backend server could be on the cloud. And you could even have a mix of them. So for example, maybe 3 sites are on the cloud, 2 sites are on premise. It doesn't matter. Everything can go through the same platform. So you can see in this case, we have 55 different websites and 2 DNS zones being protected. So remember, Imperva's service includes protection for your websites as well as your infrastructure. So the infrastructure includes DNS as well. So you have an option of also onboarding your DNS servers. So for example, right now, maybe your servers are with your ISP, but something to be aware of is in the case that someone attacks your DNS servers, which are hosted by the ISP, your sites automatically become unavailable. So Imperva can also host for you the DNS records or just act as an intermediary so that if someone attacks your DNS servers, the traffic goes through Imperva. Imperva blocks the traffic, the attack traffic, so that genuine users can still access your DNS servers. So that's like an add-on service. So you see, you have one dashboard, can protect on-prem as well as cloud-based customers. So we also have the option of using network DDoS protection, which now, as I mentioned, covers the whole set of IPs and on all protocols. So that's another setup that we're not focusing on today, but just for you to be aware, you can also send traffic for several IPs or a whole block of IPs through Imperva's infrastructure and have Imperva prevent DDoS attacks on that on those set of IPs. So in that case, you're not just looking at web traffic, you're looking whether it's TCP, whether it's UDP, whether it's application traffic, whether it's DNS traffic, whichever kind of traffic, we're going to prevent DDoS attacks on those applications. So, but now, for now, we'll just focus on the application side, application protection. So you see on this dashboard, you see just a summary of what you have in terms of coverage. We have the WAF, remember the WAF to prevent the OWASP top 10 attacks on the websites, as well as the APIs. We have bot protection, which prevents attacks using the automated system, the bots. Then you have DDoS attack prevention, again here. And then you have the attack analytics. So attack analytics is the one dashboard that gives you data across all the different modules that you have on Imperva side. So if there's an attack that is seen and blocked by the WAF, or an attack that's blocked by the bot protection tool, or there's a DDoS attack that's mitigated, everything will be presented on the attack analytics dashboard. So what that does is that it really simplifies your life. You don't have to stress over, this, for example, the WAF, sorry, has 219 events in the last 7 days. The bot protection tool has 633 different attacks they prevented. But on the attack analytics, we only have 116 incidents. So it's going to really simplify how much analysis you need to do. Just to give you an idea of the kind of coverage we have. So here we have a trends on security. So you can see these are the trends on bots, the trends on volumetric DDoS attacks, as well as WAF events. So let me just extend the time a bit. I can give you some more examples. Yeah, so you can see this, it gives you trends over time just to have an idea, okay, how many attacks am I getting? But the biggest value of this platform is that it blocks automatically. So coming in here is more for understanding what the tool is doing, not that you have to get in here every time you're having an attack to try to tweak things. Things just work automatically. So you don't need to stress so much about, tweaking things and so on. There's a SOC team behind this Cloud WAF that ensures everything is set up properly and is able to control attacks. So here you just have a view of, kind of performance of your websites, who's using it, where they're using it from, how much data we're transferring, and so on. So here you can see we have 4.5 million requests. We have a few errors in our requests. We have a cache. The cache is being used by about 2% of our apps. And you've saved about 4.7 GB of data. So Imperva's Cloud WAF includes a CDN. So the CDN will help reduce how much traffic is getting to your backend services when it comes to Cloud WAF. So for example, if you're hosted on AWS or Azure, we'll actually reduce your bills in terms of data transfer from the websites by caching some of that data. Here we give you some insights in case you have any misconfigurations or outages on your sites. We give you the details here. And here we just again summarize for you different stats around your data usage, where visitors are coming from, and so on. So we're just helping you to see like high level view of what's happening in your accounts and just give you that kind of understanding. So we'll focus on the attack analytics dashboard, which is a dashboard that basically helps you to see exactly what is happening in your accounts, or rather in your websites. So if there are hackers coming in and attacking your website, you get to see that here. So the best thing is all these things are done automatically. So you just need to get in to see exactly what is being seen, exactly what is happening, just for information. So here you can see we have different kinds of attacks. We have critical attacks, major attacks, minor. So if you want to see, okay, what are my critical attacks? So you can see here, illegal resource access, and you see all the details here. So the attacks are coming from an IP in the US using a Chrome browser. You can see the IP here. You can see what was being attacked. These are the vulnerabilities that are being targeted. And you can see it's a critical vulnerability. And out of these 1,600 events, 98% were blocked. So it just does automatically without asking for input from you. So, and then you can, if you want to see more details, you can always do it. But the most important thing is that it does just works automatically. It's able to prevent the attacks. So you can see here, these are details about the IP and so on. So you can get to see like what was actually being targeted in my attack and so on. You can get into the details, but the main thing is that you see what the tool is doing. You will present to you the analysis of what it's been seeing and what it's been preventing, just to show what work is doing in the background. But it doesn't mean that you have to come in here every time to control things, sorry, to tweak things to make sure that it's working. It just works. Yeah. So, and then also it also gives you a bit of context even around IPs. So you can see this IP has been used for a lot of attacks. So it has very high risk score because Imperva has seen this IP executing a lot of attacks. So it gives you a dashboard that you can see at a high level, and you can also drill down to see exactly what the tool is seeing. So here you can see, okay, what kind of attacks am I getting? So in this case, most of these were attacks against your APIs. Yeah, and a bit of illegal resource access and a number of bad bots. And then you can also see what kind of tools are being used by attackers. And then you can also see which are the most attack resources on my platform. So here it's fairly well distributed. So you can get to see a high level of what is happening on your applications. And then also you can drill down to see exactly what's happening. So you see we have the WAF, we have API security, we have advanced bot protection, client-side protection, and runtime protection, all on the same platform. So I'd be happy to engage with you. If this is an area of security that you feel we have a gap in this, it's something we need to work on, we need to improve, we'd be very happy to have further discussions with you. If I could just go back to, yeah, so I'd be very happy to have discussions with you and just get to understand, okay, how can we be able to attend to your areas of interest or security. So Imperva is a vendor that has been trusted by a lot of organizations globally, and in Africa they have a lot of reference sites. In East Africa we have quite a number of organizations using it. But besides from that, we are very happy to look at what specifically are your areas of concern, what are the gaps that you feel you have when it comes to security, and how best can we fill those gaps? Can we work with you to fill those gaps? So as a distributor, we engage our customers and partners to understand the areas of risk that you have, for partners to work with you as well as with your customers to see how can we help to address those areas of risk that you have, and how best can we add value in terms of getting the security to where you want it to be. So Imperva is a leader in various ways, as you can see here, and that's why we have that in our portfolio. But thank you so much for your time. I can see we are at the top of the hour. Thank you so much for your time. I really hope it's been a helpful session. Are there any maybe burning question, Diane, that you need to answer?
No questions in the Q&A section.
Okay, I think she's having a bit of a problem with the.
Sammy, there are no questions in the Q&A.
All right, sorry, Diane, I can't hear you. All right,
there's no questions in the
everyone,
Q&A.
thank you so much for your time. I'll try to put my email on the chat. So please feel free to reach out to the team. We'll be very happy to help you out. If you have areas of concern, you can reach out also to our local team member. We'll be very happy to assist you. Yep, so that's it for today. Don't take an extra minute of your time. So thank you so much. Oh, and then I've just seen a comment from one of you. We'll also be having other webinars on different areas of security. So please also be keen to attend those ones as well. They'll be quite informative by some of my colleagues. And we'll also be happy to have further ones on web security as well. So Jackson, sorry, Abule, I'll talk to Diane to see how she can share that with everyone. That's a recording of the session so that you can also share it with your colleagues and friends.